Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Garnet Old, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. I'm Ryan. That's Vince. How are you, my friend?
Doing fine, Ryan. It's a lot going on today and also this week. Mentioned a little bit off air. I've been trying to promote this show a lot. I'm real excited to have the guests we have on tonight, and I think we're going to get a lot of people chiming in the comment section, which we both love. So I'm actually laying off the alcohol tonight to make sure my wits are about me, and I know that you are not laying off. So.
Yeah, cheers to everyone out there. Just before we get started, we always give about 3 to 4 minutes to let everyone get in before we get into our main topics. If you are watching and live streaming this and you are new to the Garnet Old Show, make sure you subscribe and like the Garnet Old Show. And if you're interested in becoming a member after you watch this show and you say, hey, they got pretty good stuff, the channel's all right, we would appreciate if you became a YouTube member. We have 3 different levels, gets you a bunch of different perks. Check it out. We have a brand new member right off the bat tonight, Vince. I want to shout out Marnie Barrett. Welcome, the newest member of the Garnet Old Show. We also have Nick Snyder, longtime follower and YouTube member of the Garnet Old Show. Nick, good to see you as always. Now, Vince, before we get into our usual show, which we do have Chris from Spearatics coming on tonight, and later on tonight, Doug Rohan is going to come up and give us all the ACC legal news that we need. But Vince, to start off with, 2 minutes. For those of you who are new to the channel, I know a lot of you watching tonight are. Vince has, for the first time, started watching the TV show Lost from the early 2000s. I believe he's almost done with season 2. Vince, give the people an update. Your first watch through. What do you think?
I hadn't watched a couple in a few weeks, and I got caught up, at least to where I think I probably should be. And let me just say that I was very, very frustrated that, they found Michael, and then Michael decided to take a few people out. So they're probably using his son against him. I don't know, but he purposefully took out Anna, and hopefully to get Henry Gale out of the locker room. Yeah. But then Libby walked up. I feel really bad for Hurley. Hurley's finally, getting through it, and he's got someone that cares about him. And then Libby takes a few to the abdomen. I was not happy about that. Remind me very much of the Game of Thrones things that happened that made me feel the same way.
Yeah, man, stay tuned because there's a lot more of surprises and that kind of stuff happening in that show. I'm really excited you're watching it for the first time. Even though it has its mid to high points overall, I love the show, so I'm excited for you to be watching. Real quick, before we bring Chris on from Spearatics, want to shout out a few other members. Breeze Frey, YouTube member. Yes, Chris is here. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Ed, another Garnet Old member. He's recommending Blue Angel Coffee Blend. There we go.
Okay.
And then last but not least, of course, Chris Johnson. We're talking about Lost to start the episode for at least the time being until we run out of episodes. So, Vince, few things happened this week. So are we ready to go ahead and bring in the one and only Chris from Spearatics?
Absolutely. Let's bring him in.
Chris, what's up, man?
How's it going, fellas?
We are so excited to have you on the show, Chris. You and I met each other a few months ago, and you've been just a great supporter of this show, helped us out a lot, and I really thank you for being on. When Ryan and I say we have no inside info, no context, no problem, Chris doesn't have that problem.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a great opportunity, and Chris gladly obliged to come on to kind of set the stage for recruiting this weekend and this month, because there's a lot that's about to happen. And Chris is the guy that knows. So welcome, Chris.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me. I've been watching the show for at least 3 months now. I know for sure. Really enjoyed the way that you guys put it out there. Just showing how much you love and support Florida State University from all the sports. So it's easy to support people that support what you love. So, and you gentlemen don't beat around the bush with things that you don't know, or beat around the bush with things you don't care to elaborate on. So it's straight cut, and that's what I like. So appreciate what y'all do.
Yeah, and we thank you again for that, of course. So if anybody here is watching for the first time because Chris is on, welcome. I know Chris has promoted the show here this evening as well.
Vince,
Chris,
I think it's important to remind everyone that following the Garnet Old show tonight, Chris goes live on Spearatics at 8:15.
8:15 tonight. That's correct. So, and I sent this graphic over to Chris a little earlier today. He's not going to speak specifically about everything on here, but just as a reference point for everyone to know what is about to happen in terms of visits this month. So I know, Chris, being as plugged in as you are, give us what you're feeling, what you're hearing, and maybe something that people haven't heard about yet.
Well, I actually will start off with Zion Grady, because Florida State's they've done a decent job at getting into Enterprise, Alabama. There's usually some big men that come out of there that Florida State goes after quite heavily. And I think Florida State's done a really good job this year and last year in creating those relationships with Enterprise. That's in Troy, Alabama. So it's right in the back doors of what Alabama's trying to do, not too far away from what Auburn's trying to do. And they usually lock it down pretty good. Georgia has taken a pretty decent step into that area as well. But we've got Zion, which is a 6'4" edge that's 225, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So he's 225. He's, on 3, they've got him as a 4-star, 93 overall ranking. So he's a huge piece of what we really need to do. And Papuchis has done a very good job with him in particular when he is conversating about Florida State and what he's enjoyed conversation-wise. It's awesome that they enjoy, you're good, we'd love to have you and all that stuff. But what most of these young men ask our coaches now is, how will I be used? How will I be, to help be, one of the success reasons to get Florida State back to the previous season of 2023? Like, we don't know what's going to happen this year, 100%, but we do know we won 13 games in 2023. And the conversations that are happening between the recruits and the coaching staff are different than they were even a year ago. This class is more or less, explain to me, coach, how I can make this a better program. How can I help you win more ball games? And I think that's been huge this class so far, because they want specific answers. They want to know, in this scheme, how are you going to use me? Why would you use me the way that you want to? How is it going to get me ready for the NFL? Most of all, how are we going to win ball games and continue to move forward as this program grows? So it's been really nice. I think Zion's going to be – I think he's a good piece, and I think that Florida State's done really well with him. I do think that he does end up committing to Florida State. There's definitely other schools in there on him. Alabama's on him. Auburn's on him. Georgia's on him. But his visit to Florida State this weekend is going to be a big one. And what you will see is you've got about 24 that will be here on the June 21st to the 23rd. And those in particular are the big weekend. Why is it the big weekend? It's necessarily because those are official visits. The majority of every one of those are official visits. You're going to try to get Zion Grady and Max Buchanan to come back on June 21st and through the 23rd. So a lot of the guys that you're seeing this weekend, next weekend, June 18th through the 20th, believe it or not, you're going to want those guys to return in this June 21st to the 23rd weekend. You're going to try to take as many possible recruits in that weekend that you can, because of what, if you look at the names that are already coming, like your Tramel Joneses and your Solomon Thomases, your Ty Haywards, Josh Petty's, all of them guys that are coming in, Gavin Nix. I mean, it's a lot of pieces that you're trying to get. Your defensive lineman and Myron Charles. You want them guys that are visiting these weekends before this. You want them to come see these guys in that same weekend. Look, great players attract great players.
Mhm.
So if you bring a bunch of great players around great players, they're going to start realizing what they can be together. And then they get to hear it from the horse's mouth. Yeah, I think Florida State's that's for sure where I'm going. Yes, I'm definitely coming here. So anyone in particular y'all want to talk about, you let me know. But I'm big on the offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, getting them to come back, obviously they're going to be around great players that are going to be here, but also it keeps them away from another school too, right? So
yes,
getting them to campus twice in 1 month, and especially that last weekend, is going to be great. I'm very impressed with the quality of the offensive linemen that are visiting just throughout the whole month. Is there anything about the offensive lineman in particular that you think stands out, or is there anything? Because I know there was a lot of rumor about Solomon Thomas possibly flipping, so I don't know where we are with that.
Well, I mean, we're still fighting. I mean, that recruitment's going to go down until it goes down. But Florida State has done a really good job on the back end since the rumors have came out. Nothing's really came out from him. He's 100% going to be here June 21st to the 23rd, which is exactly what you need. If you want to keep him, you're going to need him to come back. The difference in Florida State, and what I will say is, with Solomon Thomas and a lot of these 5-star big names, some of them that aren't 5 stars, a lot of these young men like hearing how pretty they are. They like hearing just how good they are and why you want them so bad. And our coaching staff's not good at that. I will tell everyone the truth. We do not do a good job at bragging on anyone. We will tell you straight up the first time, we want you. We think you're this. We think we can turn you into this. Come be a Nole and join the climb. And obviously, it's not exactly those words every time, but it's a similar message each time. And when Mike Norvell says that this isn't for everyone, he's literally talking about anyone that needs to keep getting that hype told to them over and over again. But I think they're doing a really good job with Solomon Thomas. But that's why you see other offensive linemen like Ty Hayward, 5-star that's coming in, Josh Petty that's coming in. I don't want to say his name wrong, even though I've done said it like 4 times. Zaire Addison, he'll be coming in. I think he's a 5-star personally. Some people do have him at a 4-star. But there's a reason why you've got that many of them coming in on June 21st to the 23rd. And Dontrell Glover should be higher than a 3-star. But a lot of these guys are coming out of the backwoods of Georgia. So when you start landing almost any of them, not all of them, but most of these that are on the list, you're pulling them out of Georgia's backyard. Or you're pulling them out of Texas' backyard.
Yeah.
So,
Chris, what you're describing, it just feels like the opposite of what so many programs do out there. Use Colorado as an example, having to kind of really push the flashiness, the lifestyle, the social media, the love, and all that kind of stuff to keep their players. And we see how for some programs, not Colorado right now, but for a lot of programs that can yield good results. So it's almost like the way Mike Norvell does it isn't necessarily the only way, but it's a way that has worked. And, we saw the benefits of doing it that way last season, right?
it's okay. So Max Buchanan, for instance, and I won't say that this is one that I can use that analogy with the most, who I know relates to this. Max, all he wanted to know was why him? What makes him a fit at Florida State? what gives Florida State the confidence that he can come do what he needs to do so that they can win more games.
Mm-hmm.
And Atkins is good, but Norvell's got bars for days. He said, well, the truth of the matter is we're going to win with or without you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to come win with us, this is how you fit this scheme and why I'm pointing at you to be one of those guys to come in and be a part of this class. And he tells him the specific reasons. The way that Max took it, the way that Zion Grady took it, the way that a lot of the offensive linemen took it, it was almost like he was challenging them before they're even there.
Yeah.
And they said, well, two of them said to me over the Q&A that I did with them, challenge accepted. Like that was how competitive his conversation was with them, and they know what he's doing, and they understand why he does it the way that he does. So the difference we should be recruiting different than especially the people that are in, or the universities that are in Florida. Right now, we are the best in Florida. I mean, if people want to argue that, that's fine. But the truth of the matter is, especially for the past 2 seasons, Florida State is above UCF, Miami, Florida, USF, FIU, so on and so on. They just are. And you should be recruiting differently than them because they're not in the same boat as you. Now, Mario can recruit. Miami's got money. They can spend plenty of it. But it's going to take more than that with a lot of these particular young men, and they come in and tell us that.
Right.
Believe it or not, Luke Cromenhawk, Cam Davis, Lawayne McCoy, BJ Gibson, and there's a few more, but I'm going to name those, took less money NIL-wise to come to Florida State, by far less than what they were offered at other places. And the reasoning behind that was they said, well, I can make money now, or I can come and be developed into an NFL player while still making money, get the education at Florida State, get to play with my brothers, get to learn under some of the best coaches in the country, and watch myself move along just like, and they started naming Trey Benson and other people that just entered into the draft and made it. So they said, money's great, but it's like, and the one kid that said it, and I don't know if he's cool with me saying this or not, but it's one of the recruits that's on this page right now. He said, I'll put it like this. It reminds me of the biblical story where he says, or the saying, you can give a man a fish for him to eat that day, or you can teach him how to fish.
Right.
And he said that's what he feels like Mike Norvell and his coaching staff is. You can either come and get your one fish and be satisfied for a couple of months or whatever, or you can be here for a year or two and be trained how to fish, and by year 3, you're a pro. So I think he did a good job with that.
Ultimately, like, I know these guys are competitive, but when you're coming in fresh, your eyes get big with the money, and you like your ego to be stroked, right? You're a kid, and you think you're the best player on your team, and you want that to transition to the college level. But they want to win. They have to want to win. So if you're going to load your team up by just paying people, but they don't have the right attitude about work, then eventually, they're going to look for another place to play, because I do believe that the majority of the top players in the world do not just care about money long term. Like at the beginning, maybe they do, but eventually they want to win. So until Miami starts winning some games and Florida starts winning some games, they may be able to buy someone's love briefly, but it's just not going to last.
Well, if you look at, and I'm not trying to talk about another team.
Yeah.
And technically it's kind of this way across the country with the 2022 class. Miami's entire 2022 class is gone.
Right.
There's no one left out of it. Now, Florida State has very few in their 2022 class left. And that it doesn't add up because you still got guys from 2021 here in both programs. The situation with the 2022 class, that's for another time and a whole nother segment, but that's what they did. They bought a lot of good names.
Right.
They got some big names in there, and it didn't seem to pan out the way that it did. Like Najee Kelly, Jaleel Skinner, like a lot of those guys should have been, especially to me, Skinner being a tight end and what Miami's done with tight ends over the years. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out, and that happens.
Yeah.
The difference is what Mike Norvell and his staff's doing versus others. They're not just picking the top stars. They're not just grabbing the highest ranked kid, the highest rated kid. Now they are in it for a lot of those this year, and they were last year. But like with your Ethan Pritchard kid that you already got committed to Florida State, that's a kid that's helping recruit at Florida State in a high manner. He's doing a really, really good job. Hilson's also doing a really good job. Obviously, Tramel Jones is recruiting his tail off for Florida State. Like a lot of people are worried about him flipping to Florida, because I will be honest with everybody that's on here. The University of Florida is doing a phenomenal job on trying to flip Tramel Jones. And I mean a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
But Tramel is locked in with Florida State for multiple reasons, on top of, I'm not going to use his words. I'll make it mine. He's looking at Florida State as someone that he can come and compete for national titles with. Unfortunately for Florida, they feel like they're 3 to 4 years away.
Yeah.
So Florida State's ahead with these in particulars because of that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you stop recruiting them because of whatever reasons. Like we've been after Josh Petty for a while. We've been after Peyton Joseph for a while. And both of those young men coming on the 21st to the 23rd, it's going to be big. Like this whole month is big, but I think on the 23rd you're going to get a couple of commits. I think it'll be a couple of days after that, almost a week. You'll start seeing July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then the later half of the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. I don't know if everybody remembers how we did this last year.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Yep.
You've got one guy committing after the other, sometimes 2 a day, sometimes it was 3 a day. But then it turned into, after June or July 12th, it was one every day up till the 20th.
And that was definitely coordinated.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it's going to be.
It's so that's great. So that's the next thing I was going to ask you. So, without spilling anything that you may or may not know, what are you feeling good about in general, and just maybe some specific dates that you think people should be aware of?
So I definitely believe that June 25th, 27th, July 1st through the 5th, then July 7th through the 19th, and then there'll be multiple on July 20th, as long as nothing gets hammered away. But I will say one of the surprises to us, and this was a surprise to me, all kids said we have a shot, okay? But when you get in a deeper conversation with them about it, you start realizing there's really not a shot.
Yeah.
In specific kids.
Yeah.
The young man, Vernell Brown III, which is a legacy to the University of Florida. Everybody's got him locked in, and he's a Gator. He's a Gator. He's a Gator. He's a Gator. I will not be surprised if he commits to Florida State that weekend of June 21st to the 23rd. It will not surprise me in the least. And I don't even know if y'all got him on there for that day.
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good. So you've got, I think, 24 through June 21st to the 23rd. There are 4 more that have not been announced yet. And I believe that 2 of those 4 are going to be commits. The reason they haven't been announced is because they're extremely big names. So there's going to be like a thing behind this, a whole theme. And I will say that, and I do not want to mess my young man's name up from across the pond, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
But he immediately started recruiting for Florida State. And he hasn't even committed himself yet.
Yeah. This is is he a defensive lineman from Germany, or where's he from?
No, it's the DB from I guess that's England. That's what he was flying.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't know how to say his name. I know his face. I know his mom's face. I know his little brother's face, but I don't know his name or how to pronounce it correctly. Because he came out of kind of nowhere. It just kind of popped up and happened. And it ended up being, that's it down there. No nonsense. Put it. Honest.
Onus or Honest Konambani? Who knows? We're going to find out, though.
Yeah. But, yeah, AKA Snowfall. I do use their nicknames, just not on other people's shows, because when I say them, I'm like, who's that? Then I can't pronounce their real name. But where I was going with that is this young man wanted a straight cut and dry. What do you want with me here at Florida State? What am I going to be? Why should I pick Florida State over any other university?
Yep.
Because everyone's talking to him. He's popped up over the past couple of weeks as being a huge need for multiple schools, LSU, Miami, across the board. He's across the board now. But he's had conversations with a lot of universities. His words to my people and myself that I have never met a coaching staff or possibly even people that are that real. So they did a really good job with him. He did come from SFE with Dirt. That's Coach Dirt. There's quite a few kids coming from Coach Dirt to us, but I'd say who I'm most excited about, guys, and if y'all want to cut me off at any time, you go right ahead.
Doug's not here yet, so we can talk about this as long as we want. I'm just excited that July, we're going to own the whole July buzz. Just
and it's way too easy too, because the fireworks gifts, and how they kind of play into the 4th of July, and it just works together so well. And it was a lot of fun last year. I mean, I remember sitting at a 4th of July get together, barbecue, and like, oh, look at all this stuff coming down. It was so much fun.
I had to charge my phone up so I could keep track of it all.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh no, y'all are good. So this is what I want. I want everybody to pay attention to. So of the past couple of years, people have been worried about the trenches, the offensive line and the defensive line. People have been coming at Odell for the defensive line. People have been saying, what happened to Atkins after the 2022 class? Why aren't we recruiting the big men like we were, a couple years ago, 2021 and 2022? What happened? I don't know if anyone's paying attention to the majority of big men that are on these lists. But I'm going to start with my guy, Myron Charles, defensive lineman. That's Florida State's kid to lose. He is Florida State's all day, every day, as long as they do what they're supposed to. Jalen Wiggins, that's coming to Florida State on the 21st to the 23rd, that is committed to UF. Let's just say that there's particular young men that are recruiting him at a very high level of getting him to want to come to Florida State. On top of, we'll just say that Odell and Papuchis are doing a really good job on him as well. Then you move over and you look at, what was that last kid that I'm trying to remember? Nicholas Clayton was here, and Papuchis really likes him. Everyone believes that he should be much higher ranked than what he is, and that will potentially happen over the season. I like him personally. I think that he's really, really bendy. I'm using terms that I'm hoping everybody knows what I'm talking about, but can bend under the
Jimbo. That's a Jimbo term right there. Good bend.
Yep. And he's very good at it. He gets really low to the ground, can keep coming with speed. Fisk did a really good job of that at the combine. How close he was able to stay to the hula hoops and stay down with his shoulder. Mm-hmm. That's bending. So really like him with what he did there. You go to a lot of the defensive linemen, though, let's see. You got Myron Charles, Wiggins. You've got Javion Hilson, which is already committed. You got, let me see. Oh, there's two of them that's not on here. Justice Terry, the one that's committed to USC. I really like Florida State's opportunity to flip in him. I really, really like our opportunity with him. The conversations that we had about him, I mean, I'm not knocking USC by no means.
Yeah.
But they're telling him he can be the difference maker at USC, which is true. He can be.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can come in and keep Florida State's defensive line where it's been trajectory-wise for the past few years, and you can be a first-rounder completely.
And don't get the wear and tear on your body.
Exactly. You will not have to wear yourself out to get to that point.
Right.
A young man that, a lot of people think that Texas is going to get 3 of the best wide receivers in the country in one class. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just telling you they won't.
Yeah.
There's no reason to. Malik Lockett, which is a kid that I really, really want out of Texas. Florida State has a really good shot with him. Dugans has been doing really well over the past few months with him. I liked his – how did I say this right? Okay, so I liked his response to why Florida State came to the top of his list. When he said that the way Dugans spoke to him about what he wasn't doing well and what he could fix on the field for him and how easily he could fix it. And he said that he had nobody else university-wise or coaching-wise tell him he was doing anything wrong. They wanted to tell him he was perfect. He was so close that it was ridiculous. Come, just be who you are, ball out here with us. And these kids are starting to really go, wait a minute. Now I'm trying to get good enough to go to the NFL. You can't tell me that I'm ready to go in the NFL today.
Yep.
That's right.
So critique what needs to be critiqued because I want that. I want to know what's going on.
Yep.
And then, you look at, let me see. I'm going to use who y'all got on the list because if it's not out there, then that means it's not common knowledge.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And this really helps me because I'll be naming people that's not on it. And then, but
hey, Chris, hold that thought just for 10 seconds. I got something for you right now. Joining the Garnet Old show, Doug Rohan of Rohan Law to join the tail end of our recruiting chat before we get into legal talk. How are you, Doug?
I'm great, party people. What is up?
Straight from Publix with the rotisserie chicken.
Yep. Had to rescue the family from a night without dinner. Mom was busy too, so picked up the rotisserie chicken and some veggies and getting ready to feed the family.
By the way, Publix not a sponsor.
Yeah.
No.
But Chris, go ahead and let us know what else you got there. But I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, y'all are fine. I will just say, keep your eyes on the potentials of like Williams, the 5-star tight end that's committed to Georgia. I think Florida State's doing a really good job on potentially flipping him as they did Landon Thomas last season. If you look at where's the running back at? I don't want to say his name wrong. Where is he at? I just seen him.
Osman Chroma.
Oh, he's one that's good too. Okay, the guy I'm talking about is not on here. Anyways,
okay.
Osman's a good one because I think Florida State will take 2 running backs in this class. It's going to be between the gentleman that's not on the list and the rest of them that are on the list. But the one that I really like so far, I can't say his name.
There you go. You have to send it to me after the show, so at least I know.
Todd Robinson has done a really good job here lately, and Florida State's been really high on him for the past couple of weeks. But let me give y'all like 3 that I'm gonna leave it alone after this. Offensive tackle, Ty Haywood. Offensive tackle, Josh Petty. Inside offensive lineman, Peyton Joseph. That's 3, and then I'm gonna give you. Let me go. Tavion Wallace, I think everybody should know, is more than likely Florida State's.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't know if I can tell them about that. Well, okay, the safety Jordan Young, I think that's Florida State's to lose. I think they've got him, and they just have to hold on to him. And then the Fitzgerald kid, the DB Bryce, really, really like that young man, and I think the Florida State's got him pretty much locked down as well. But I think Florida State takes 2 of your tight ends, and I think Chase Lofton is definitely up there on one of the guys they want to take. And then there's a 5-star that's on the list that I do believe Florida State lands, and that is the one I was talking about, them flipping from Georgia. So,
Okay.
Awesome.
Appreciate y'all. If y'all need anything else, I'll just be chilling.
Hey,
Yeah,
Chris, I know you got your show starting at 8:15. For those of you, we're probably going to be done here about 8:05. So hop on over to watch Chris. And Chris, thank you. And anybody that's here because of Chris, welcome to the show here. If you don't mind, like and subscribe.
Also, real quick before we switch topics to kind of the lawsuit, the world wants to know, Doug, mesquite or lemon pepper rotisserie chicken from Publix. What flavor did you get? Do you know?
We went OG. We went
Oh,
OG. The wife wasn't feeling the flavored variety, so we just got the original blend.
man, did anything happen today in the world of the lawsuit? Let's see, Doug. What do we
It
got?
was a slow
give us
week.
a quick update.
Well, that's why I was late getting on. I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to consume and share intelligently with you what we found out today. But we did get a copy late today. Thank you, Matt Baker, who's usually my source and consistently outscoops everyone except Chris Nee on getting these documents. So had a chance to go through the brief that was filed in Florida today by the ACC appealing the decision of Judge Cooper to the First District Court of Appeals. And it was really interesting. It was well written. I'm not going to lie. The ACC attorneys did a good job in putting this together. It helps when they have some good meat to go after. The better your arguments are, the easier it is to write a good brief. And basically, what they're accusing Judge Cooper of is going rogue. He's making decisions based on his feelings, and he's making decisions based on how he thinks the outcome should be, and that's kind of one of the big no-nos in jurisprudence. We're supposed to follow the prior decisions and the prior case law, and if we do want to come up with some new and innovative arguments, then we need to make sure that we are very careful about crafting those arguments and outlining why a new approach is necessary. So here, the ACC was hammering Judge Cooper on using the patent law cases that he cited to, refusing to cite a Florida case law on some of his bigger decisions. And, as we have seen throughout this process, it's not as clear cut as a whole bunch of people, especially those in Garnet and Gold, would like it to be. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this appeal.
Yeah, I think overall, just in general, what with this court case and so much going on with recruiting, I mean, June and July are just going to be packed months. We're going to have so much to talk about. And Chris, do you have, sorry to tag you in, do you have any thoughts on kind of the current state of ACC versus FSU and where we're at on it?
I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think the court stuff's the court stuff. I think the majority of what's getting done is not happening in court right now. I mean, there's so many rumors and so many conversations that I could speak on and make it a huge deal. But I will say that I think that the ACC's in the understanding and Florida State's in the understanding, and it's mainly because of something that I've heard Doug point out a bunch. It's the amount of money that the ACC spending on legal fees. I mean, it's becoming very nuisance to what they're trying to do. So there's a lot of conversations that are happening behind the scenes. They're folding very well for, we'll just say, the settlement issue to happen, because the rest of this is they're going around and around, and that becomes very costly to the ACC, Florida State, but the ACC is going at it with, I think 6-7 different lawsuits at once. So they're spending a lot of money.
Doug, I do wonder, hypotheticals here, if something were to end or happen in a settlement, how would we first find out that a settlement talks are in in the works or being discussed, or even, hey, this is settled? Like, how does one find that out in the case of a lawsuit?
Well, first off, we won't find out that they're talking. We just have to assume that they're talking. We won't know anything until a deal is done.
Okay.
And much like we've seen with the lawsuits, I think you know who your sources are and who is on the inside track. Somebody will get tipped off by the attorneys that are involved. And,
Mhm.
I've already mentioned, that Matt Baker and Chris Nee seem to get copies of these documents before everybody else. So I would, set your alerts for their tweets. I think it'll probably be out on Twitter before it's anywhere else. That's where I enjoy Twitter and the fast moving news cycle. But I don't expect a press release from Florida State to be
Okay.
the first time that we hear something. I don't expect, any order from the judge to be the first time that we hear something. I think that there will be, pen to paper on an agreement at some point, and then one of those individuals who have been on the inside track with inside information, legitimate inside information, will probably be the first ones to break the news. But I would take Matt Baker and Chris
Yeah.
Nee, one of those two, over the field right now. Maybe Ira, throw Ira in
Yeah.
there as well. But I would take one of those three over anybody else at the moment having the inside track on that decision.
Doug, do you want to Doug and Chris, do you guys want to have a little fun? Just real quick. I want each of you to play a side in this right here. So, Doug, I want you, Devils, put on the ACC cap and say
Happy to.
why the ACC may not feel the need to settle right now. And then, Chris, without getting legalistic, why do you believe the ACC, may want to settle sooner than later? Let's start with Doug.
The moment that the ACC announces a settlement, they have admitted that Florida State and Clemson are right, that they did something wrong, and it calls into question their future existence. If the number isn't high enough, will there be a departure of teams to the Big 12? Is the Big 12 going to step up and take the ACC's mantle of being the third best conference? In terms of settlement, we're getting the money right now. The ACC gets the check from ESPN. Yeah, we're going to pay out $42 million to Florida State in a week or two, but we're going to sit here for another year and get another check for FSU's games, and we're going to sit here for another year and get another check for FSU games. And yeah, we're spending money on attorneys' fees, and it's distracting, and it's less than ideal use of our time.
Sure.
But we're talking about a couple $100,000 versus tens of millions of dollars. We'd rather just maintain the status quo and keep dealing with this petulant child that just keeps making insane and ridiculous arguments that have no basis in the law.
All right, Chris, let's just hypotheticals, argue the opposite point.
The ACC needs to settle quicker than later. Why? Because their name's going to get dragged through the mud, continue to the amount of money that they're losing on legal fees, even though here's their side is okay, well, maybe we can hold this out for another year or two. All three of these lawsuits will not last 2 more years. Something's going to happen. Whether you're going to hit the settlement, you need to hit the settlement so that it doesn't ever get to discovery from either side, whether it comes from Clemson winning and getting the issues that are taken. People are writing Chris wins. I am saying this.
You're not even done yet.
But
and perspective right there.
It's kind of simple to me. I think that the ACC needs to settle so they can, whatever that amount is that Florida State and Clemson settle for, they don't need to wait again on adding teams to the conference. You got to kind of let it go. Like Florida State and Clemson, they're leaving. Regardless, one way or the other, they're getting out. So are you going to wait until these other conferences start taking these members that you need to replace Florida State and Clemson so that you can stay somewhat relevant? You have some money in your pocket because of the settlement to go out and do so. And plus, you're the only conference that has a crazy buyout of over $100-something million. Whereas the biggest reason that you need to let us go is because you can lose. It's not because you will lose. It's because you could lose. Now, if Clemson wins, now you owe them money. instead of them owing you a dime. If Florida State wins, then they just get out anyway, and you don't own the rights to nothing anymore. It's like it's over with anyway. But if you settle, you at least get something out of it. Your name stops getting dragged through the mud, and it's pretty much over with. Like, I just let it go and let it be. Go back to being the basketball conference that you are.
Look, if you thought people were paying attention to Clemson and Florida State last season, wait until this season starts. You know how many more eyeballs we're going to get as the ACC on all of our games because people are tuning in to see what's happening. They're rage watching the ACC just like they rage watched FSU in the bowl game. We're loving this media. There's no such thing as bad media. The ACC is going to rake in the dollars, and Florida State's going to be shocked when we get to pay them $50 million next year in the payout because of how many eyeballs this controversy has caused.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You thought the eyeballs had been big lately. This season is going to be through the roof, and it's okay to be what I want to say the majority, but a lot of fan bases out there, because of what they're fed, they only know what they're fed.
Yep. We're
seen as the villain, right? So it's okay to be the villain. The eyeballs are still going to come, and that means the money is going to come. So the sooner the better. And, the Clemson thing, Doug, I just want to hit that real quick. Mm-hmm. If they get a judgment, I know that is first of all, how quickly do you think that's going to happen where they're going to make that decision? Is there a date already for that? Okay.
No, even without all the appeals, you still have the competing lawsuits. So you still have a situation where Clemson is going to be arguing that this should be a South Carolina case, and the ACC is arguing that it should be a North Carolina case. So even though they're ahead by a couple weeks, we're going to find ourselves in the same quagmire there as well.
Yeah, fighting on multiple fronts with a leadership that has shown not to be great. It's not going well for the conference, and I'm not shocked by it.
Doug, what would be the next step after, obviously, ACC files this motion? What do you think comes next?
So Florida State will have the opportunity to file a reply brief. I believe, if I remember hearing the time frame correctly, it'll be within the next 30 days. And then within 60 days of that, they'll probably schedule an oral argument, just like we've seen in the other hearings where both parties stand up and give their perspective. And then the Court of Appeals will issue a ruling 30, 60, 90 days after that. So again, we're still talking about January, December before we're getting anything out of the Court of Appeals. We might hear the North Carolina court, Supreme Court, deny cert on the appeal there. So maybe North Carolina Supreme Court says, we agree with Judge Bledsoe and he was right. And so then that sets up the conflict that is described in the ACC brief to Florida. We've got two competing lawsuits, and that's a waste of everybody's time. We need to pick one. And I don't know that the Florida Court of Appeals necessarily will, but based on the ACC's brief, they've got some very strong arguments if there are some non-FSU friendly judges that want to rule against Florida State.
For those of you that are watching and saying, man, another year, another 2 years, I don't think that we are going to be waiting too much longer to know that Florida State is out.
Correct.
I'll just say that.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that it's coming sooner rather than later. There could be a decision or at least a statement that we're leaving, as early as the end of June.
That's right.
The question is, will we say we're leaving the conference before we have a settlement? Or is that two announcements or is it one announcement?
Right.
That, I think, is really the next big question, the next big issue that the leadership at Florida State needs to decide.
Being that we want to be mindful of time and not, getting too close to Chris's own show here, that's going to be at 8:15. One thing I do want everyone, Doug, to comment on real quick. I'm going to go ahead and bring this in. And so any thoughts on the college football playoff, like how the rounds and the schedules? What are your thoughts on the dates? Like my first thought is like, man, it'll keep so many more fan bases engaged longer in the season. So many fan bases, you hit that 2-loss mark and you're like, well, it's, we're not going to make it in the playoff anyways. And a lot of fans, casual fans, disengaged. I really believe that this many teams being involved will lead to record viewership numbers this year for college football in general. What are your thoughts?
Go ahead, Chris.
It's going to be really good for the sport. I personally think that this playoff, especially the first year, will have more viewership than any other sport in the history. I really believe that viewership, if you add up these 12 playoff games, right? You add that up, it's going to be more than the NFL, and that's the hardest one to beat. It's definitely going to beat the NBA Finals. March Madness, it may even be able to beat an entire month of March Madness. And that's based off of the analytics that Fox has dropped, CBS has dropped, ESPN themselves dropped. They're going – we'll put it this way. They're making provisions to have more servers because of how many are going to be streaming it versus the old style of cable. They're literally putting buffers because they believe it's going to be that big.
I think it's great for viewership, and I don't know that it's great for the athletes. That's what I've said. Anytime we've continued to expand the progression of the season. I mean, look, anyone that's been a Florida State fan for more than 2013, if you remember back to the Virginia Tech game in the Superdome with Florida State winning the championship there, I don't know that we could have fielded a team the following week. We had so many players go down with pretty significant injuries in that championship game that the next week it would have been probably an uncompetitive matchup. Now, fortunately, Louisiana Superdome has gone to turf, and we don't play on thinly covered concrete in there anymore. But it's great because it reduces the risk that the New Year's Six Bowl is irrelevant. So that's a positive. But I mean, you're stretching the season out from December 20th to January 20th in the postseason, and that's not nothing. So unless they're going to up the scholarship limits, unless they're going to start talking about 100 active roster instead of an 85 person active roster, I think that the two need to be married. The two need to be read in conjunction, because as it stands right now, okay, Florida State might have been able to get a competitive game with Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, but what about the week after that? We beat Georgia. Now we've got to play, Alabama or Texas or whoever else, Ohio State. I mean, if you expand the playoffs beyond what happened last season, we were already playing banged up. We already would have been holding a right. Look, we deserve the right to play in the college football playoff. I don't know that I would have mortgaged my house on the likelihood that we would have won the college football playoff, but we earned that right on the field. I don't know that we could have played 2 more games. I don't know that those players who were gritting through their injuries could have sucked it up to have 2 more competitive matches.
It's going to be a grind for sure, and it's going to be different. I mean, one thing I will say, I am confident that this staff will load manage and keep people as fresh as they can possibly keep them for as long as they possibly can do it. They've shown to be able to do that in the past. And this season, especially because we've got 3 bye weeks, is going to be very helpful in terms of that.
I also, Vince, think that this new format will inevitably lead to less players opting out during bowl season, which will be nice to see. The more teams that have a shot to potentially win a national championship, the less players are going to opt out for said bowl games. So I think it's going to just lead overall to a lot more intrigue, where in the last, honestly, I'm a college football fan. I love college football. I haven't given a crap about half the bowl games out there, and it's been boring.
That's correct.
It's
been a while.
Some of our old game, Vince, I went and ate dinner after halftime of the Florida State Georgia game last year because I'm like, what's even it doesn't even make sense. Georgia has all their players. We have all these opt-outs. It's not even worth it. It wasn't even worth to watch because you already knew the outcome by halftime. So it's like by having this many teams involved, I am excited. The pros are more players longer in the season. The negatives are, like what Doug said, more players longer in the season
Yeah.
from the player standpoint. So, but at the end of the day, I think we all know, every single person on this video right now knows the bottom line is money in the league. And
Mhm.
things are going to continue to get more and more professional. Like, I mean, we already have the 2-minute warning coming this season. It's going to start to feel more like professional football. That's the reality of the situation. I mean, we even have NIL in high school now. So it's just going to keep going further this way. So don't be surprised if more and more things start to reflect the professional game.
A lot of that is unfortunate as long as we maintain, the passion and the pageantry and all those things that make college football what it is. If they're going to play a few more games, okay. Making sure kids get compensated for what they do for the universities, absolutely. Yep. But I do not want it to get to a sterile feel, and I'm worried about that. I am.
All right, let's go to final takes. Start with you, Doug. Final takes. What are you looking forward to in the next 30 days? What's your anything? What are you looking forward to with Florida State?
My name bar's over it, but I've got my James Tibbs III jersey. Got to bring out the energy for Tibbs to show up tomorrow, and I'll be there. I'm getting up at 5:00 in the morning again and making my way down there. This time I get 2 games in, so I'll be there for Friday and Saturday. Hopefully, I'll get to watch us dogpile on Saturday, and we don't have to worry about a Sunday game. But as far as the litigation goes, I've got 5 more days in case anything pops, and I'm off the grid from June 15th to the 25th. And then we come back, and on June 29th, we'll be having a meetup at Scofflaw Brewery in Atlanta. So that's kind of what we've got planned for June with Vince joining us. So we're going to be my hype man. I'm going to have to rely on you to keep reminding people about it.
Send me all the details. We'll make sure we get everybody there.
Perfect. And let's go to you, Chris. Final word. What are you looking forward to most in the next 30 days?
I mean, I'm extremely excited for the baseball team and what Link has done in a very short period of time. Seems like we have a baseball coach that can use the transfer portal just as good as the football coach can. Not saying that they're all from the transfer portal, but I think Link did a really good job at turning this team around in a very short period of time. I think that pitching is the only thing that I ever get worried about, and that's not just with Florida State. That's just around the league of college baseball. It's just how many left-handers do we got, though? I think it's wild. Barely could find one when I played ball. Now they're everywhere. I look forward to Florida State being extremely competitive and hopefully getting to Omaha. I think that they will. But there's a specific day in between July 20 or June 27th and July 20th. I know that's some of them are longer than 30 days away. Yep. There's a specific day in between there that I'm looking forward to the most because of the person that's given me all of the content about Florida State leaving the ACC even 2 years ago. It's still the person that's telling me what's happening. And so far, he has not been wrong. I don't know that he'll ever be wrong, but there's a specific day where I think Florida State comes out between those dates and at least announces that Florida State will be leaving the ACC after this particular season. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Awesome. And what I'm looking forward to the most is watching Spearatics here at 8:15. But before we get to that, real quick, I know all of you guys are excited about this. Garnet Old, we're on our own climb to 2,000 subscribers. So if this is your first time to our channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because if we reached that 2,000 subscriber mark by the College Football 25 release date, we're going to give away a PlayStation or Xbox and a copy of the game to one lucky viewer live on a special edition of the Garnet and Old show. So hit that subscribe button, and you could win a copy and a game console, which is huge. But gentlemen, man, what a fun night. It's been a great show. We appreciate everyone in this room for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. And Chris, looking forward to watching your show here in about 15 minutes. And as always, Doug, it's great having you on the show. So I'm going to keep everyone in for the goodbye here. So Garnet and Old, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. And Vince?
Send Chiefs all the damn time. And Ryan, screw ESPN eternally.
Exactly. Hey, go Noles, guys. Doug, Chris, you guys be good. We'll talk to you next time. All right.
Go Noles.